Hey, y'all, and welcome to the first episode of Photographer Life Check. I have here today my first amazing guest, Tumi Adeleye, one of my very good friends and one of my favorite Black women photographers. I'm so excited that and so grateful that this first episode is with you. I have told you that so many times and I can't shut up about it. Um, I'm really, really grateful and I'm excited to learn more about your journey. So everybody give a round of applause in y'all cars and stuff to Tumi. Okay, girl. I would love for you to just give like a little background about who you are, where you're from, so we can start at the beginning of your creative journey.
Yeah, my name is Tumi, and I am an art photographer and also creative director. I am a first-gen Nigerian American. I grew up in Brooklyn and Nigeria, and I spent a lot of my years also in Texas, and now I am living in Inglewood in California, which is really dope. Yeah, and I'm just excited to be here and to be talking with my friend Qurissy.
Okay, so yes, I did intend to introduce you as an art photographer, so I'm sorry about that. But I think art photographer is the best description for you. I think your work is so gorgeous and it touches on so many different parts of photography that art and artists kind of really define you to me. And in going through your work, I see a lot of conceptual work, a lot of artistic work, and even a lot of self-portraiture with very big themes that like jump out to me immediately. And I want to dissect those a little bit with you. So before we get into the whole journey, how do we being you actually, how does Tumi become a conceptual art photographer, a portrait photographer? Like, how did you find yourself in this field?
You know what's crazy? I think I just thought of it for the first time for real just now. And I realized that initially I never had I would say like the intention to shoot people just to kind of have like cool portraits of people. I was doing it, I explored it initially because I was seeking some type of creative outlet, especially because I was in such a like dark place in my life. It was like after college and I finally got out of this like 4 year on and off relationship, and I didn't really know who I was. And also prior to being in college, I was living in Nigeria and I was very like, good girl, but secret bad girl. And I was like, who am I? And I, I, I've always used photography in the past, like when I was in Nigeria to connect to people through like Facebook. And I do these like like fun edits on my photos and stuff like that. So I just wanted to reconnect with that part of myself when I
Yeah.
graduated. So started modeling at first. And then from modeling, I realized that, like I wanted to more so create the stories in the photos. So that's what really made me like pick up the camera and also pick up direction to like tell stories. So I feel like that's like it's always kind of like started from there. That was like the root. Yeah.
Mm. So period, you've always been an artist. I love to hear it. Okay, so back to these themes. I'm also pull up your website, which features some of my favorite work. Um, but what stands out to me absolutely is Black women, Black hair, and childhood a little bit. I feel like I got a couple different themes out of childhood though. Like it seems like there was some connection, some confusion. Can you talk to me a little bit about like w- the things that led you to those themes that show up like so evidently in your work? And I'm gonna
Yeah.
pull up your website while we talk about it.
Yeah. So back to your question about like what got me to like explore those like topics and stuff like that. Um, I feel like specifically with hair, I think that was one of the first like stronger stories that I was able to successfully like um communicate like visually. I just grew up like in such a I would say like prideful household as far as it comes to appearance. And
Yeah.
my mom was always like heavily invested in like what I looked like.
Okay.
My mom would always say stuff like, like your body is my body and, your pain is my pain and stuff like that. And really what was I think her intention behind it is like the way you represent yourself to me, from the way you dress to the way your hair looks throughout the week, even though you go to school and roughen up and stuff like that, you're representing our household. And a lot of that, like keeping up appearances, I feel like that it came with a lot of, like fun and also pain, like literally getting my hair tugged every Sunday and getting my hair relaxed every month or so whenever we'd go to the salon was a huge part of my story. So I decided to do this shoot called Pink Oil in Lagos. And at that time, I didn't own an actual camera. I was just shooting on my iPhone. So I connected with someone that I actually knew from secondary school. So while I was living in Nigeria, again, like I was like always on the internet posting photos and connecting with people like around me, like that I won't be able to see physically. And one of those people's
Yeah.
name is FIFO. And FIFO ended up becoming like a photographer. And he was always like a really kind person and stuff. So I reconnected with him when I was out there in 2019, and I was like, "Hey, I have this idea, and I'd love for you to come help me like tell this story." And me
Yeah.
and my mom, we went to the market and shopped for like different fabrics that I used in the background. And other than that, everything else, all the props that you see, even like that pink oil bottle, is all from our household. And that particular bottle is probably like 15 years old. So it was
Yeah.
really dope, just kind of like seeing things around the house and not really knowing for sure that that's what I wanted to use, but like it kind of all coming together. Like even when I went to sleep, like I remember with this particular shoot, like I could almost see the image of what I wanted to create in my dream just because I was thinking about it so much. I would
Yeah.
say the biggest thing that like the biggest hurdle or challenge with this shoot was I wanted my mom to look like she was doing my hair, like actually doing my braids. So it's like, okay,
Oh,
like logistically, I would have to go to a salon, ask them to do my hair up until a certain point, and then like go do this shoot, then go back, and then they
I
finish
know
it,
they
and then
thought you was crazy.
yeah, they did. And my mom had to like almost explain to them, like, even though they spoke English, but my mom had to tell them in Yoruba, like, oh, like she's doing it for a photo shoot. Like, we're all good here. Don't like again, it's always about appearances.
Yeah.
But this was really fun and really cool because I think this was like the start of, what connected my mom to my creative interest. And like me and her have like our tides, but I think photography and fabrics in particular has been like what's been able to glue us over time throughout all of that.
That's really beautiful. On a side note, pink oil is the same like luster's pink lotion, right?
Yeah, yeah. We just called it
My
pink oil
God.
growing up.
My God. I feel like I've been getting back to my roots. I mean, I know I'm bald now, but like the natural hair movement really did a number on us. And I'm like,
Yeah.
I just really need my pink lotion back. I need my blue magic
Yeah, and
back. And like,
the blue magic, people are getting back to the blue magic too.
yes, I'm like, let's really stop playing these reindeer games for real.
Yeah.
Um, but I love that. I was absolutely curious if that was your actual mom or if you had somebody just like, stand in as your mom. And
Yeah.
it's really beautiful to see y'all connecting that way. And also that being like an entry point and her connecting with your interests. Like, I didn't even
Yeah.
consider that when I was just viewing. And I'm like, oh my God, like that sounds so important. Um, and that also makes me think about how like childhood and motherhood kind of feel like hand in hand to me, because naturally so it's like so much about our experiences as children, and maybe even the reasons why we feel the way we do or have the experiences we have is because of our parents, and even more likely because of our moms. Do you feel like in your work the themes like of childhood or motherhood that come up for you, is it because of your specific relationship with your mom, or do you think you're kind of like digging through something a little more general?
I feel like it's so. How do I even start with this? Because there are times that I would create something and not even realize, like, oh, that's where that came from, or that's what I was unconsciously doing.
That's so real.
Yeah, like with me and my mom, she's definitely inspired some of my shoots that, but it was really because of the experiences that I've had, of course, because, she brought me into this world that she could also take me out of.
All right.
Um,
They don't want you to forget it. They will never let us forget it.
yeah, but I feel like the stories aren't really directly about us, but because of how our relationship unfolded, I think um that's what kind of pushed me to almost like want to break out of like, this like almost like
Mm.
what's that, like a cocoon um
Yeah.
that like caterpillar is in, and that's what like my mom protected me in for so long, and that's what she hoped, like I would stay as and then become this butterfly that she imagined, but really like she actually played a part in like literally like the type of person that I looked like after I broke out of that cocoon. And those
Yeah.
stories like that are like even untraditional looking, like even like some of my shoots that, have like a touch of like, like abstractness to it and stuff like that. Like it's really all because I was kind of seeking to break out or seeking to rebel. And it all kind of goes back to like where I came from. And, it's like, oh, why are you wanting to break out? Why are you wanting to explore this? Like, or, is it coming from a place of hurt or, curiosity that you never really got to play with freely when you were younger? Um, you know, and don't get me wrong, like I definitely had my freedoms growing up, but it's like the freedoms I I definitely hid them. Like the shoots I was doing and sharing on Facebook. Like I never did a photo shoot when I was living in Nigeria. In secondary school, I never did them when my parents were home. I would literally, as soon as I knew where my mom was going, I knew exactly how long it'll take for her to like, be there and stuff like that. That's when I would rummage through all of her old stuff and I would like, like dress myself up. And it was like almost like the privacy that I had made me feel comfortable, but it's also like still wearing that mask when you're around other people, it makes you want to kind of like when you get older, you're like, okay, I want to be myself. I want to figure out who I am, And it also kind of
Yeah.
makes me kind of angry a little bit at like, why didn't I feel comfortable like where when I was a kid in my home, like doing these things freely in front of everybody. But it helped with me also knowing exactly like where things were in the house, like all these old things that I ended up using for like my shoots, like using as props, like just because I was digging and digging. And I know my mom wouldn't let me do that in front of her because she'd be like,
Mm.
what are you looking for? I'm like,
Yeah,
I'm looking for
right.
answers.
Exactly. Oh my God. Okay, so this is also making me think about some of your portrait work. So, or your self-portrait work in particular. So I'm gonna pull that up. Do you feel like some of the self-portraits you got into were because you were also still looking for yourself, or is this a different era of your life?
Some of it. I don't know. Well, okay, so like this one, for example, I feel like this is all like this. I shot this in a phase in my life where like I was pretty comfortable where I was as far as like, the woman I was becoming. And I shot this on iPhone in my bedroom. Um, and I also did not have much of a relationship with my mom at this time. So this was me like rebelling, but also wanting to create something beautiful and something that I had pride in. And,
Yeah.
a lot of times, like when I just kind of put things together, it was like, hey, like I don't know what this would look like, but I want to try it. And it's still worth like exploring and stuff like that. And even like that in itself, I feel like is not something that a lot of black kids are a lot of black kids like were like almost like that's not how we were raised. If there was no certainty there, then we're not allowed to do it. Like I remember
Mm-hmm.
this analogy or this video I saw rather of this kid playing in the airport and he was like climbing on the windows. And in the video, someone had mentioned like if that was a black kid, it's very likely that your mom would be like, come down because you're probably gonna fall. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so it's like how we explore the unknown really as at least as it relates to us when we were young, like it's very like stay away from that. And then now as an adult, the way I explore the unknown is like I have a healthier sense of curiosity with it. um so I would say like that particular shoot is the beginning of that. And honestly, all of these earlier shoots that I shot on my iPhone and just really helped having friends and community that like also like were down to play dress up and just like let's just do this together, like yeah, I'm down. And they're wearing jewelry that I got from my mom's closet just from rummaging through it again.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was wondering if some of these props from your early work is the stuff that you were finding in your mom's closet.
Something,
Like,
but like those big stuff are, that was in my apartment's lounge. But
for sure.
like the necklace she's wearing from my mom's like old things and stuff like that.
Okay, so I feel like it was always there, like this idea of conceptual art. I feel like I see it absolutely even in your self-portraits here. But I feel like it's really cool to see your website because and I don't know if it is exactly like most recent to earliest work, like most recent at the top, earliest work at the bottom. But it feels
Yeah,
like if I'm
basically.
scrolling, right. Okay, cool. So it
Kind
feels
of.
like if I'm scrolling up on your website like this, I'm seeing your growth. And as I'm witnessing your growth, like it just gets more and more conceptual. And so that I want to land like right here. How how can you teach a younger artist or an artist who's just like trying to find their niche? How do they know if they're a conceptual artist or not? So, like, how did you know that this was the lane that you were potentially going to be a part of? And I'm going to just like show maybe these three.
Yeah, at this time when I was shooting this, I didn't know. So maybe a good signifier is not being sure of what exactly like, you are like almost like that uncertainty is like a good signifier. And it's also cool when, when you're not drawing inspiration from like mood boards or Pinterest and you're just creating things out of like your own drive and out of your own like ideas that you have. Um I also think, self-portraiture is also like a good way to kind of like almost like signal whether or not like you're a conceptual artist, because self-portraiture, like depending on how you play with it, you know, you're really able to like kind of like take it there fully because no one's expecting themselves to look the same, I guess. Like if you shoot yourself and you alter yourself a lot, like that is totally fine. Versus if you took a photo of someone else and then you present it to them and like they're so altered and they're like, this is not what I wanted to look like. Why?
Yeah.
So it's like when you're really like experimenting, whether it's in post or while you're shooting, I think that really says a lot. Um, and also if you're also working with other people and you're like, again, it kind of goes back to like, hey, I don't know what I'm shooting, but I have this idea. Are you willing to be in community with me and be creative with me? And we not know the results together, but like ultimately want to share this moment together. I think that's also a good signifier of, just being creative, and being like conceptual
My
too.
God. I mean, like, that's one of the most important bars to me because I feel like everybody, not everybody, let me not generalize, but a lot of people think like you have to know your end result already. Where it's like,
Yeah,
I know exactly what I wanted to create from the moment like I thought of it and blah, blah, blah. And there is so much, I think, creative work, but even conceptual work that it's like, I kind of got like the idea. Like, and
yeah,
I want to play around with the people that are down to play around with me to see what we get out of
exactly.
it. And you got some really incredible work out of it. Not to say that all of your work is just like free form like that, but like I feel like it's very clear that some of your work feels a little more playful. And even in the ones that feel intentional, and you might be like, oh, that one, girl, I just knew I had this idea and I was like hopeful that these people will work with me on it. And it ended up working out. Like, I think that's a beautiful way to create. And it's one of my favorite ways to create.
Yeah, no, and I see that a lot, even like with how you explore like lighting and explore shooting with different like film formats. I don't know if I'm saying it wrong because I'm not a film girl,
No, you are.
but like you inspire me, and I see people that like are inspired by like your like curiosity and how you experiment, and I think that's just where the magic is.
Well, thank you so much, friend, but this ain't about me.
Yeah.
Can you tell me about this series? Let me go to the homepage because it's a couple of these, right?
Yeah, that's part two of a series titled Portraits of a Mad Black Woman.
Which was also featured in Hilltop. Yay!
Yes. Yeah, man, this series and the fact that it's even in a black space like Hilltop honestly kind of speaks to, I feel like, how do I even say this? Almost like my premise as a person. Like,
Mhm.
I do a lot of this, like, for my black ass self, and I want it to touch people like me, Like, and I want it to touch everyone, but it's really, it's for the black woman gaze. And it's
There
for
you
it's
go.
for us, like, because I'm like, just by doing myself a service by creating these ideas, like I know at least one person outside of myself is going to feel it. So the fact that it's sitting somewhere like Hilltop after being told so many times, like, oh, to me, like when I go on your website, like all your work, like I could tell like it's just black people you shoot. And I'm like, technically no, it's just the work that I have on my website. It's like I'm showing primarily people of black skin tone.
Hmm.
And it's always kind of people have always kind of said to me like, it's going to hold you back. And I'm like, well, sure, if that's what you think, but I'm going to keep doing what's authentic to myself because I feel like there's not a lot of us that are telling these like stories from this position. And it's going to end up at the right places. So the fact that it's sitting at Hilltop next to the words, "What a time to be alive," is really impactful for me. And it means so much because even the meaning of this is like the meaning of this series is like going through life so misunderstood and people like, you know, not being able to process my complexities that are really for me, they they're like vibrant flowers that are strong and fragile. And if you know how to approach them, how to hold them, how to nourish them, you would really come to love and understand it. Um, and I think that also kind of goes back to like empathy, which clearly like not a lot of people like have. So this series was really fun because I went to like the craft store. I just got a bunch of flowers and I wrapped it on my face. I was like, oh my God, this looks so cool, right? I was living with my roommate and she was like, yeah. And then I tried it on her. I was like, okay, yes, this looks exactly like what I think it's gonna look like. So I ended up going to the lounge in my apartment and I just set my camera up on my tripod and I had like my phone in hand that was serving as my clicker and I wrapped myself up and I remember people like walking past and looking at me like not even crazy but more so intrigued and I was just like oh, I'm still going to like take these photos and I remember at that time I also had a really cool therapist that was like Nigerian American and she understood like my background and stuff and she gave me such good advice that really then helped me understand the meaning of the shoot and she was like it's always important to take a moment to think about like even just one element of a shoot and why you might have chosen to go with like what you went with there. And for
Yeah.
this shoot, like I feel like every time I revisit it or hear someone else's perspective on it, it almost like becomes even more full circle to me. Yeah.
That's really beautiful. I love knowing the backstory on this shoot because I don't think we ever talked about it like in depth like that. So I really appreciate it. I feel
Chris.
like that one and Foresty Cherry lives
Yeah.
like side to side in my head. I even though Portraits of a Mad Black Woman doesn't feel like it's about hair to me, I think because the flowers are around your head, having it next to Foresty Cherry kind of like reiterates this idea of softness and fragility and vulnerability and intimacy that you're talking about, where I'm like, I completely feel that in these photos. And even like the choice of using mesh around your body, or is that tulle and not mesh?
Yeah, it's mesh.
Oh, okay. So even the choice of using that around your body and the choice that it was red, like I feel like it speaks like so heavily about what the title gives you so much already. And then when you like see the images, you're like fully enveloped, especially the ones that are like complete black background. Like you're fully enveloped into the scene. I feel like I just walked into a dark room and here is like this completely red and like full bouquet of a woman. And I don't know, it just takes me to a very particular place that I really appreciate. Um, but with that in mind, I'm gonna pull up Foresty Cherry. I
Yay.
feel really compelled to let everybody know that this is one of the hardest photos ever made in all of life. What I also
Yeah.
noticed too is that graphic design is really important to you as a conceptual artist. Um, could you talk a little bit more about that? Because I do know that some people approach conceptual art really practically. I don't know the name of it, but you know those images where they feel like almost like human still life, but like it's basically like
Like
white people
surreal.
like planking on gates and stuff.
Yeah, like surrealism, I would
Yeah,
say.
yeah, like kind of surrealism. And I guess like
Yeah.
in those kind of ways, it's very practical art. Like they're using real bodies, real props in
Mm-hmm.
those types. But I love your approach in using graphic design, and I'm very curious to know like your process in that, how you even came to like collaborate the two. Was that always a part of your process?
I feel like I almost incorporate things like I guess like in post as I like okay, so this shoot for example, I didn't think that I didn't know that I would end up like wanting to like add like the swirling and stuff like that, which I did with like Pixart at the time. Um,
My God, incredible!
yeah, I did it with Pixar. But I would say like for me, like just in general with post production and like editing, I feel like that's really like the cherry on top where I'm really truly able to get like the image and the emotion like full circle and out to people, at least to myself. And it's also where I spent the longest time, and it can be a bit of a, I would say like an obstacle sometimes because of just how long I end up like in that phase. And I'm like, oh my God, with
Mm-hmm.
like this photo, I really love this photo, but I was so like, people are gonna look at this and be like, oh, like this is not what a photo should look like. Like, why is it negative? Like,
Yeah.
um, but yeah, like I feel like for me, it just almost opens up doors as far as like how much fun I can have with a photo. And I'm getting more comfortable with that, and I think it's also made me want to see how much I can do before post. So like while I'm actually shooting, like I'm like, okay, if this is the idea, how can I actually like bring it to life? Like while I'm shooting. So the closest I could get to bringing that idea to reality versus post, like I do also have a lot of pride in that. But also for safety reasons, like I didn't have like the smoke and the fire like live because like this is
Right.
hair.
That
Like
makes
the
sense.
mask is made
Exactly.
of it. So I'm like, I'm not trying to kill myself for the sake of a photo. Like I'm
Okay.
But if I do come across that photo, at least people would know that it was worth it.
Truly. I absolutely love it. What made you go the theme of the smiley face?
I don't. I'm like, why did I choose that smiley face? I was like, what do I have enough space on? Like, what do I have enough space to make? And what also kind of represents like me as well. So I'm like, I do love like the emojis. Like I love emojis. Even the Forsy cherry has an emoji next to it. So I was like, okay, let me just like make a smiley face, and this will be like simple and also very like, I would say easy on the eyes to people and also understandable because again, it goes back to the emojis being a universal thing. Um, and then also the with the nails as well, I had asked my friend Deja, who is a really dope like nail artist. I was like, hey, like I have this idea and I want to use like red nails that would be a really nice like juxtaposition to the or contrast to the yellow. It's like putting smiley faces on it would be nice. And yeah, that was like really the intention behind it. Like with the red nails, red has always symbolized like, you know, like danger. And also my parents were very against like red nails, red nail polish for me when I was younger.
Same.
So
Yeah.
I wanted to also like play into that contrast of having like the smiley face on the red nails versus the smiley face on the yellow face.
I think it's really interesting how dark it actually kind of feels. Cause like in a way it's also whimsical, but it's also a little dark, like it's
Yeah,
also like a little creepy,
yeah,
like how do I take this in kind of thing. And I think that's such an interesting
yeah.
approach, especially for potentially like non-black women to be looking at. Um, if we're talking about like these themes of hair, especially black hair, which I feel
Yeah.
like you focus on a lot in your work, um, do you feel like a sense of, I was about to say whimsality, but I'm like, that can't be a word. But whimsicalness and darkness when it comes to black hair?
Yeah, I definitely do because like I've always loved like the puffs and like the afros, like the small, the large, everything. And for me, like I wanted to create something that was kind of relevant to my experience living in Austin, Texas, which is a primarily like white state like city.
Yeah.
And whenever people would come in contact with like my different hairstyles, but particularly when I had like my afro on, like it'll bring a lot of joy to them, like to Black people and to other people and to white people and stuff like that. But at the same time, to the wrong people, honestly, to anyone like to certain people, they would feel very enticed to touch my hair. And
Yeah.
that's where I was like, okay, like I don't want to give cute and whimsical to the point where I'm looking like that inviting. It's like I still want to give, respect my boundaries. So how can I almost like play into like fear a little bit, but also get the message across with like hypnosis and like trance, playing with the word trance, because I'm like, I feel like the only thing that can make someone like can possess somebody to touch someone's hair is if something has entered your head and maybe you've lost all your senses and you're like, oh, let me go touch this
Literally.
hair. So I was like,
Because the
okay, I
way I've
want to
never thought about it,
see.
the way I've
I'm
never
like,
considered it.
I no, I would only touch my sister's hair without permission. But
Right.
anyone else, I'm like, oh my God, like if I'm seeing my friend's natural hair for the first time, I'm like, wow, girl, like I'm like, like, and I'll be like, can I touch it, girl?
Right.
Because I'm also a texture person. So like I
Me too.
understand. Yeah. So it's like you're a texture person, you're a stranger, and not only are you a stranger, you're a white stranger approaching a Black girl in a primarily white city and you're grabbing her hair. It's like, okay, it's
And
no
you
longer
don't
fun.
see, hello. And like, you don't see how that looks or how that might feel
Yes.
because you think like, you think you're the main character in this situation and you're not.
Yeah. And that's where for me it becomes a horror story for me. And I remember the
Truly.
last time someone did that, I literally kicked them. I kicked them real strong right in the ass. And it was it was the most satisfying thing I had done in so long. And I was so thankful because
Yes.
I was like, I had to literally tell everyone on my social media. I was like, y'all, I think I just did something for all of us. Because in those moments, you just be like, what? And then you just like look at the person crazy, maybe keep walking. And then you'd be in the shower and then you'd be biting your bottom lip like, I should have.
Right. Because, like, sometimes we get in these situations and sometimes we freeze because we're legitimately like, what the fuck is going on? But
Exactly.
I'm glad you kicked that person. They deserved it.
Yeah, exactly. So I really wanted to create an image that like it would like, it reels you in, but also like, don't touch them. Like
Yeah. Which makes me think of another series you have. I think this one's called Crowned. Yes, Crowned. Another one that I feel like is a fan favorite. I'm gonna share the image real quick. This piece is so beautiful. Um, in terms of like, I think about this idea of you wearing an afro and it's a nice big round, probably perfectly shaped afro, and it's gorgeous. And it's like we experience moments like that where somebody touches us without consent, also a stranger, and you're like, what the fuck? And I feel like in some ways when women in particular come upon danger in that kind of way, and like, yes, there are levels of danger, but like, we don't know this person. That could have very well been a dangerous situation. Women come across danger sometimes, and we make ourselves smaller or quieter in order to survive. And it's just a natural reaction, like no judgment to those of us that do that or have done that. Like that's just kind of a part of life and like figuring out how to grow out of that. And what I love about Crowned is that it feels like that's the alternative response. That's like, oh, I'm gonna just be louder. I'm gonna go bigger. This afro gonna get taller and I'm gonna
Yeah.
eat it up and y'all are gonna be sick. And if you touch me, I'm just gonna get bigger and louder and stronger. And that's kind of like just what it feels like to me. Also, the fact that like she's on top of this pedestal like a bust, it feels very regal. It feels very like a callback to like just Black history and all the greats that we've had that deserved bust and never got them. Um, can you tell us a little bit about like your approach into Crowned, and then like I don't know what other people like the other feedback you may have got from it, but do you feel like that feedback also is aligned with like your intention in creating it?
Yeah, I would say it's definitely very much in line with it because when I first came across this wig, which my friend Tila made, she's a really awesome hairstylist, and she had posted it on her story, like maybe like 8 months before the shoot, and I never stopped thinking about that, and it like just ever since I had first seen it, I had thought of so many ideas of like how to shoot this like particular hair if I had the
Mm,
opportunity to, and also like if it was still available. Um, and as luck would have it, like I was able to then, like she was able to bring the wig to LA, and we shot it in my living room. And I this with the model Natalia, honestly, my initial like I would say like my initial idea was just to kind of have her like leaning on the pedestal and have like her
mm-hmm.
hands on it. And then I realized as we are shooting that the image in my heart wasn't really aligning with what I was seeing. So I was like, okay, you know what? Let's try this. So I got this gold fabric that my mom had bought for me from Nigeria, and I like hung it by the walls, and then on the other end, like my friend was like holding the other half, and I was like, okay, this looks very close to like what I'm feeling and the energy that I'm wanting to get across, which is like regalness. So I was like, okay, like just put your hands like back and have your head like on the pedestal. And we shot it, and honestly, I didn't know I was going to make it look like her head was floating as well. I think like with post, that's where post came in, and I was like, okay, I'm getting closer to what I'm feeling in my heart. So like removing like her neck and stuff like that helped with adding like the illusion and stuff like that. And then that's when I finally got to a place of like, this is really like what I'm feeling. And even though in the other images, like her, she's touching the pedestal and stuff like that, it's still like the image that was, those images are closest to what I had in my heart. So I'm not always like striving for perfection with every photo. And I think that's the freedom of what I'm able to like get in photography, which I really love, because like who's going to tell me this is how this is meant to be? And if I'm able to be like soft on myself and be like, like kind to myself, I'm like, like this in itself is valid because you created it, and there's a story here, and it's still worth sharing, and not even knowing like how far it'll go in life. Like this is also at Hilltop, and it also got published in the Vice photo book as well. Um which I
Come
also have a
on.
copy for you. But yeah.
Oh my God, yes.
Yeah. But
That is
yeah.
so kind to do to yourself, and like to think about this art process is giving you ways to remember that you are worthy. Like, girl, that's deep work. Like, when I think about conceptual art, I think as an artist, I kind of do have like some behind the scenes knowledge of like what it takes to make art in general, whether it's conceptual or not. So it's not that I don't know that like these really deep rooted feelings of like worthiness and how to be kind to ourselves is a part of it, but just to hear you talk about that and then to witness your work at the same time feels like impactful in a different kind of way. And I don't know, like I wish we were in the same room so I can give you a hug.
I
I'm
could
just
feel
like, oh
it.
my God, this is so sweet. Okay. So while we're kind of on the topic of work and things, I feel like even from just the work I've shown here, everybody go make sure y'all go to her website and book Tumi. You clearly have a style and aesthetic. And if I see an image, like it just happened the other day, I feel like we were on the phone or something, like we was on FaceTime and you just pulled up an image, but you didn't say it was yours. And I was like, wait, that's your work, right? Because like you just have like such a solid look. And I have always valued that in other artists. And I definitely remember an era in my life where I was like, I don't know how to find that. Like, how do I find that? Right. But one thing that stands out to me is the work that looks a little different. And I'm about to pull it up too. But one in particular, I think it's called Fight Boy.
Yeah.
Yeah, extra. Okay. So this one, I would love to talk more about like how you went into it, your process, your thinking, and why it feels so different than the rest of your work.
Wait,
Boom.
are you pulling up? Okay.
Yeah. This, like,
You
it's
know,
so incredible. Oh my God.
thank you. I'm like, this shoot was for so long ago.
My bad.
Oh no, no. Like I really like this shoot a lot and I've been thinking about how to bring elements from it back into like a future shoot.
Mm.
Um, you know, I I genuinely don't be knowing like where the edit will take me. Like I just be playing with stuff and I'm like, oh, what if I did this and that? But like I would say one thing about this that is kind of similar to like the way I shoot other stuff is like me like hiding the face, which I do every now and then.
That's
Uh,
real. Yeah. Or even like the
yeah,
material around their hands.
yes, and the material around his hand. And I remember like my intention with this shoot was to kind of like play on like my childhood and how I used to be so like what's the word, tomboyish, and I
Mm.
love like fighting, quote unquote, but like play fighting. I love play fighting a
Yeah.
lot. So for one, that's what made me like wrap up the hands and stuff like that. But I don't know, like I haven't really, I feel like if I shoot men in this like form more where I'm highlighting like their muscles, maybe like if I did that in the future or present, like there will be like a similar like you might be able to see the through line. Um but yeah, I don't know. Like it definitely does feel very different. It's like, oh, like it's just the same person's work. But that's the thing, like even just today I was talking to someone and I was like, like he was like, it's important to have a distinctive style. And then when he said that, I was like, oh my God, that might count against me because you go on my website, everything is looking like, oh, like this is different. This is different. This style is different. And he was like,
So
oh
let's go
no.
ahead and pull that up. Let me stretch this out a little bit. Where it's like there is variety here. Like while this feels like your work, and if I looked at it, I was like, did Toomey shoot that? If I look at this one, I'm like, oh, Toomey shot that for sure. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
And I really appreciate your versatility.
Thank you. I feel like the colors, when I'm able to play with rich colors, that's really when like you'd be able to like know that okay, this is like, Tumi's work and stuff like that. Yeah. This shoot, um, this shoot was something fun because I was like, I just wanted to capture like Black women in like a few different ways with portraits. And I feel like I had like this whole idea, which I didn't even like fully do. Like I had like ideas for like using like just like one color for a certain type of emotion. Like for the reds, I wanted to it to give
Oh,
like
yeah.
kind of like a futuristic like vibe. And then I wanted to play with like yellows. But I just did what I could, and then I think who I like the rest didn't work out, but that's fine. I was like, I got some out of it, and that's more than enough. Because at least I didn't just sit with the ideas, because they're ideas that I
Yeah.
have that I'm sitting with, and
I'm actually really glad you pointed out the fact that it's like, I mean, it's not so left field because you do cover up the face in this one, kind of like how you did in this one. And even in this portrait, which could probably be defined as just like a normal portrait.
yeah.
What is your like artistic process around covering up your face? Like what things are you like thinking through when you do that?
Um, I feel like it really stems from my self portraits and not really wanting to feel like the subject. And I feel like for me, that would afford me the ability to take a photo that might look sexy, which I haven't. What I'm talking about is not on my website because I just had this idea of like doing a shoot where like my face is covered, but I'm in panties and a tank top, which I feel like if I didn't have my face covered, it will come off as sexy. But if I did have my face covered, like it'll come off as the story, like the actual message. And I'm not trying to discredit where people's heads are at, like when they look at an image, but growing up, like I don't know, the clothes that I was allowed to wear and how I even felt with how my body was developing and stuff like that, it really played a part in me feeling comfortable in my skin. So I feel like when I first then started shooting and I started like, there were some shoots that I had where I'd wear like bodysuits and stuff like that. It really was a huge like subject in my family that caused a lot of like just a lot of arguments, and it broke us. And um I think after that, like I got a little uncomfortable with shooting myself and I just started covering myself up, at least covering my face. So I didn't realize that actually after there was one big argument, that's when I started like covering my face up in some of like my photos, and then only recently
Yeah.
I'm starting to like get comfortable again with like, this is my body, like, you know, I will do what I want. Like my birthday photos, I was like, okay, I'm gonna do a photo in this like almost like lingerie type of outfit, and
Yeah.
I don't think I didn't I sent only like the portrait ones to my mom. I didn't send the full body ones, but that was
That's
like my
real.
first time doing a shoot like that where I was in something remotely sexy and I showed my face and that I like, felt comfortable doing. And that was 3 years, 3 to 4 years after this whole argument had taken place and since I started covering my face up.
Damn, sis, it's so crazy. Thank you so much for even like being comfortable enough with sharing that.
Yeah.
I'm glad you sound like you're kind of like on the other side of it and figuring out how you want to show up now. Um, I'm curious, do you feel like a sense of responsibility to your family, especially with like the trouble you had in being like, hey, I'm gonna follow this dream of being an artist in this way? and that giving you some kind of resistance. And then you also finding resistance in like showing up as yourself, and then in turn like hiding your face in some of these portraits that you took. Do you feel like a sense of responsibility to your family, parents or otherwise, to show up in a particular way? And or like, how did you find yourself getting over some of these hurdles to where like now you are comfortable in various different ways?
Yeah, I would say I still kind of feel it because, you know, there is a bit of fear and, judgment that I fear getting from them when I share like a photo of me where I'm using like a joint or a cigarette as a prop, even though I don't smoke cigarettes. Um, I even noticed even with like 4C Cherry, there's a picture of her like smoking and stuff like that, and I posted that on, on my website. But if that were actually me with my face, my dad in particular would say, "It's okay to smoke, but why do you have to show other people?" And it's like,
Right.
yeah, it's like, I don't know. But I do feel like the resistance and who I really owe are the people in my family that I don't know yet. And those are like the future generations. And I think also a part of my mom that, she is still exploring and also seeing through me. Like even though she like had like a lot of resistance and stuff like that, I still feel like she sees a version of herself that um that went for her dreams, went for her creativity and explored it without like shame and stuff like that. But for me, I had to work through that shame and stuff and getting comfortable again. And I remember whenever I had posted these photos of these beautiful, like Afrocentric photos of me in like this bodysuit, and um, I had like very beautiful hair, and like my background was really nice. And I posted it, and I was so happy about it. And I remember my brothers were like to me, like, you can, like, we could get over this whole like argument, and you can make everything better if you just delete the photos off of your Instagram. And I told them, I was like, it'll be taking something away from me if I do this. And I don't know that it'll be like that I could get it back, or will we be able to get over it, So I'm like, and I remember I kept it up for a while, and then I probably archived it or something like much later whenever I wanted to like revamp my page and stuff like that. But I definitely had to communicate to my parents. I was like, photography is 100% for me. This is something that like I am doing for my mental health because of the life I've had, and because of what I can, like, I have these wild dreams for myself that I don't have any example of in my family, but I can see myself being that example for our children in the future, you know? Like, it is possible to, one, make a living out of, like, just your creativity, but also it's also okay to be creative, and it's okay to explore that. And, you know, even though I didn't have the safest space to do it, at least like I'm doing it right now, and they would know that they have like an auntie or someone from their past that like did those things. And I'm really glad, like, at least like while I'm alive, at least my work has been published, so that can never be erased, and that's proof that they can go back to later.
Come on. I mean, you really you really just gave me a word with how you advocated for yourself in the first place. Like, that was a bar. Like, if I give away something right now, I don't know that I could ever get it back. And especially thinking about how you're talking about the ways it could be affecting future generations. It's like future me needs this right now. And I just got to take that with me. And like, that's probably going to be a little journal prompt or something because that was really, really beautiful. And I'm really, really grateful you shared that with me and with all of us. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Okay. So, with that being said, I want to switch gears a little bit and move on to my next segment called The Gear Don't Matter, but. And I just have two questions for you. One,
Yeah.
what's your favorite piece of equipment to use in a shoot? It does not have to be camera gear.
Okay.
And then two, what's a piece of equipment you'd like to use that you haven't yet?
That I would like to use that I have not yet. Okay. And something.
Which that could be camera gear, lighting gear, you know. The answer to
Yeah.
either of these questions could be anything, but just so you know.
So in shoots, what I like to use that is not like that's not a camera, right?
It doesn't have to be. It can be a camera. Like if your favorite
It
piece of
can be a
equipment
camera.
is your camera, that's cool.
Yeah. I would say uh, uh, I would say honestly my iPhone. And I only say this because like man, like getting BTS, like only my iPhone's gonna do that while I'm like everything
Okay.
else going well. And honestly, if everything fails, at least I got the camera, my
At least I
phone.
got my phone. You ain't lying.
Exactly. And like honestly, before I got my camera, it was really my phone that I was using to like shoot stuff. So
Exactly.
yeah, so like really it's really like I feel like the best camera, someone had told me this. He was like, the best camera is whatever you have in your hand. And like, even if that's like an iPhone 9, that is fine. An iPhone 12, that is fine. Like, it's still going to capture what's in front of you. And I feel like just over time, it's really helped with me understanding the importance of capturing moments like as soon as like you see them if it feels right for you to capture.
Yeah.
And then something I like a piece of gear that I would like to use. Hmm. I'm like, there's so much I still haven't used. Like,
Yeah.
I went to a lighting workshop and they were like, no. Because I'm like, it would be cool to have like a portable like strobe, for example. But it seems like a lot to carry around. So I'm like, I'm like, what? There's a lot of stuff. Like, damn. This is a hard one. This is a hard.
That's real. I figured it could go either way because similarly, I feel like there's a lot of gear that I would like to use. Like I just want to test out like cameras alone
Yeah.
and lights alone. Like I just really would love to see what kind of
You know
projects I could
what?
create with certain things. Yeah.
Yeah. Film cameras. I own a film
Ooh,
camera, but I haven't used it enough. And also the light meter is not working. So I would say film cameras.
come on. Is it 35 millimeter?
You know what? Now that I really understand what that is, I'm gonna go back to it and look at the lens and figure that out.
Okay, cool.
No, because for the longest time people will be like, is that a 70? Is that a I'm like, this is the only lens I have.
Right. It is whatever it say it is.
But now, like, I've not touched that camera in years, and I got it. I got it from this old woman, Mama Jean, that had an antique shop, and she was like, "A lot of people like this camera, and they keep coming to ask about it. And since I like you and you're a photographer, here you
Oh,
go."
shout out to Mama Jean. That's so kind.
Shout out to her. She rest in peace.
May she rest in peace.
Yeah.
Okay, and then next we have photo tips.
I have photo
Based
tip.
on our conversation, I'm using this segment to ask questions based on our conversations, right?
Uh-huh.
And what I find is that like you're using themes that require a lot of intimacy or vulnerability. So I'm curious, what key things do you do, or just maybe one key thing that you do to create a safe environment for your subject?
I would say I work with people that I'm pretty familiar with, and I would say, yeah, community is really important. So being discerning for one, working with people that you have a good feeling that you get along with. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and then while we're shooting, I feel like it helps to be conversational and also to just be real and very like transparent, even about how you're feeling about, like even how you're feeling about the shoot. Like, hey girl, I don't know what this is gonna look like, but I'm really grateful you're here. And also showing them like previous projects. It's always helped to show people before and after images. Like
Mm-hmm.
when I show people the before image from a shoot, they'd be like, that became
Yeah,
that.
like it builds trust. Yeah.
It does. It helps really it helps them like be like, okay, okay. I'm like, yeah, just me. Yeah, but be cool and treat people the way, you want your favorite person to be treated. Yeah.
There you go. And my last little shoot your shot, I would love to know who is somebody or a company or a brand you'd love to photograph or work for.
Honestly, fuck it. Sacred.
Come on. Come on. Yes. Oh my
Sacred.
God. Ooh. A
Yeah, I'm like,
nice, real, like conceptual piece for Sacred.
yeah,
I mean, the art design of their bottles alone, like it gives you so much to play with.
yeah, 100%, 100%. Even you saying that is making things like reason.
I can see it. Okay, so Sacred or anybody who worked for Sacred, y'all need to hire Tumi because clearly, as you can see, she would kill it.
Give you a chance.
All right. Again, thank you so much, Tumi, for hanging out with me today. I feel like I learned so much and like was left with so much from our conversation. I love you and your work, and you inspire me so much all the time. Please let the people know where would you like to be found, how they can hire you, follow you, all the things.
Yes, you can find me on Instagram at TTUMIE. And also my website is www.tumiadeleye.com. And yeah, shoot me a DM or an email. And yeah, I'll respond if it's legit.
Beautiful. And I just realized right now that I didn't introduce myself at the top of this. Hi, I'm your host, Qurissy, a host of Photographer Life Check. You can hit us up with any questions or suggestions. Let me know how you felt about it at photographerlifecheck@gmail.com. We'll have Tumi's links all in the description. And but
One.
yeah, since this is episode 1, y'all just gonna give me some grace and be okay with it. Okay, love you. Bye.